You got this. I believe in you. My name is Jay Cohen, and I am a cookbook author. I worked in some of New York's best restaurants and test kitchens. And now I consider myself the king of dinner parties. I'm obsessed with cooking for my friends. My goal is to create delicious, reliable recipes that are gonna make you an entertaining superstar. It's stunning, but so simple. Let's make this easy. Hello, Sunshine. I'm Jay Cohen, here to share reliable recipes for easy entertaining that are gonna taste like you tried. Today, we're switching it up, and I'm gonna teach you how to master the perfect yeasted dough. We're making a challah dough, but we're not baking bread. We're gonna be taking that dough and splitting it up to create two entertaining masterpieces. The first being challah-wrapped hot dogs for the best pig in a blanket you've ever had, and the second being a challah monkey bread that's gonna be the perfect dessert to blow all your guests away. We're gonna get started on our dough, and what I'm gonna do is give you all of my tips and tricks, so anytime you have any recipe that uses yeast, it's gonna be absolutely perfect. To get started, I have my stand mixer here. We're going to be using the dough hook attachment, but we don't need that yet. We're gonna start by blooming our yeast. What that means is we're gonna make sure that our yeast is alive. So to do that, I have 1 cup of water here. This is heated to 115 degrees. Very important. If you do not own an instant read thermometer, this is not the time to just be eyeballing it. What you want to be doing is you want to activate the yeast to make sure it's alive and gets foamy and starts to eat that sugar to create gas, which is what's going to make our dough rise. If it's too hot, if we're getting anywhere around 135, 140 degrees, we'll kill the yeast and you'll have just a flat bread that is as dense as can be, which is not what we want. So I'm gonna add our water straight to our mixer. And then I'm gonna throw in, I have a ½ cup of sugar total. I'm just gonna put in a couple of tablespoons right in. And this is just to give the yeast something to eat to make sure it's alive. This is 1 packet of active dry yeast, which is 1/4 ounce or 2 1/4 teaspoons. I'm just gonna sprinkle this on top. We're gonna let our yeast sit for about 5 to 10 minutes. What we're looking for is the top should become like a latte, nice and foamy, and that's how we know our yeast is alive and ready to continue on with this recipe. And we wanna check this now because these are all expensive ingredients and we don't want the dough to end up in the trash. That being said, if your yeast does not do anything, which again, patience, give it that full 10 minutes to make sure it's alive, it can mean a couple of things. First, it can mean that it's just dead, it's been sitting in your pantry, it's been sitting in your fridge for way too long, and you just need to get a new batch. Or it could mean that your water was way too hot. If you poured on boiling water, you probably just killed the yeast immediately, which is why it's so crucial to temp the water that we're using for our dough. So you can start to see that layer of foam that's coming up on top. That's how we know our yeast is happy and thriving, and we can keep on going with our dough. I'm gonna add in the rest of our sugar. So that's a ½ cup total. And then we're gonna put in our oil, a 1/4 cup of oil. Any oil, really. I'm telling you, I've done this with olive oil, done this with vegetable oil, done this with canola oil, avocado oil, flavored oils. You can really go wild. It's whatever you have on hand is gonna work great. 1/4 cup of honey. This is what gives it that really beautiful, distinct flavor, that floral sweetness that's so nice. We're still using that combo of honey and sugar just because honey's expensive and it's very liquid, so you'll have to add in more flour. So I find that this combo of 1 part honey to 2 parts sugar, it's the way to go. And then we're gonna throw in 3 large eggs. You could use the whisk attachment to get everything together, but I find it easier just to throw a whisk in the bowl since then we'll be using our dough hook to really get everything nice and combined. You don't have to go crazy. We're just looking to really incorporate the eggs. All right. So now we're gonna add in bread flour. We're using bread flour because I need something with a higher protein content because we wanna build up a nice gluten structure. That is the proteins that really give bread its shape and its ability to kind of stand up on its own. I'm using anywhere from 5½ to 6 cups of bread flour. Why the range? Well, something that you need to remember is that dough is a living, breathing thing. We're working with this yeast and you have to respect it. That means where you are in the country, the weather, the humidity, these are all things that are gonna affect how much flour you have to add. We can always add more, but we can't add less. So go under, start at 5.5, and then slowly incorporate more flour until you get the right consistency, which I'm gonna show you. I find that 784 grams is kind of like my secret number for a perfect challah dough. That being said, I always have some extra flour. We're gonna mix it up and take a look at the consistency. I'm gonna mix this on low speed just until it begins to incorporate, and then we're gonna move it up to about medium speed until a nice dough forms. It's gonna take about 3 to 4 minutes. All right, one tip to note when your dough is done is that it really should pull away and clean up the sides of the bowl, and that's how you know you really have a good consistency. Even if we need to add a little bit more flour, that's the first thing we're looking for. I can already see that my dough has a little bit of stick to it, so I will flour my hands, and then I'm gonna use a nice floured work surface. Making dough is an arm workout. Just because you use your mixer doesn't mean you don't get to get your hands involved. I find the combination of starting in the mixer and finishing it by hand is how you get the perfect dough every time. That being said, if you don't have a stand mixer, you could do this all by hand. It's just gonna take about like 10 minutes of kneading, so you can count that as your workout of the day. I'm gonna start by kind of doing this motion. Think of it like a rocking back and forth with your palm, and you're using your heel of the palm to just push your dough, and then you turn it. And it's a little sticky here, but this is not when we're gonna add flour. The dough we're looking for is tacky, not sticky. Those are the words you gotta keep in your head. Sticky means it's pulling off on your hands. Tacky means you feel the pull, but it doesn't rip off. The best way I can describe it is the better the gluten development, the more water it can hold, and as a result, your dough is gonna feel drier or tackier instead of sticky. So before you add more flour, you gotta knead it more to make sure that you have that gluten development built up first. So when you saw that dough come out, you saw how much stickier it was. I knead it a little more and it automatically looks drier. That's just because we're continuing to build up that gluten and it's able to hold more of the moisture from the dough. And we're just looking to do this for a few minutes until you get this gorgeous, smooth, round ball. So I have a bowl that I've greased with a little bit of oil, and we're just gonna put it in, down, twirl it around to make sure it's nice and well coated. I'm gonna cover this with plastic or a kitchen towel, and we're gonna let this double in size. We're proofing this dough, we're letting it rise, and the real sign that you're looking for is when it has doubled in size. I'm gonna give you a time, typically an hour and a half to 2.5 hours, depending on how cold or warm your kitchen is. Try to put this in a nice, like, warm environment. Sometimes I put it over the washing machine. Sometimes I put it by the stove if it's preheating. You wanna make sure it's not too hot, but a warm environment around that 115 degrees will obviously be the key temperature for letting that dough rise quickly. When we come back, we'll have our proof dough and we'll start building our pigs in a blanket and monkey bread. Welcome back. This is exactly what I was talking about. Our dough has doubled in size, which was the key visual cue. It took about 2 hours, but again, that might be a little shorter or a little longer depending on the temperature in your kitchen. I'm gonna put it out on our counter. A good tacky, not sticky dough will not stick. You won't need any bench flour, which is the best. And I'm just gonna cut it in half because we're using half for our pigs in a blanket and half for our monkey bread. I'm gonna cover this back up just so it doesn't dry out while we work on our pigs in a blanket. So I'm gonna take the dough, and really we're gonna roll it out into a 12 by 10 rectangle. And then we're gonna create these little strips that will wrap our hot dogs in. I'm always the one who's going for like multiple pigs in a blanket at a party. So this is a recipe that just embraces your love of a hot dog, and everyone gets their own individual full-size hot dog because we are grown-ups and we deserve it. We're gonna cut this into strips, so feel free to just use your hands to kind of shape it into a nice rectangle. Amazing. We're just gonna cut this into 12 strips, 1 strip per hot dog. I'm using a pizza wheel. You could use a pastry cutter, you could use a knife, whatever you have, just to get some nice, clean 1-inch strips. So since we're going for 12, I find it's easiest to eyeball if I cut them first into fourths, and then each fourth into thirds. I'm using my favorite all-beef hot dog. You can use whatever hot dogs you love. I always think it's kind of funny that we call them pigs in a blanket, but I'm always using a beef hot dog. But you do you. We're gonna take each strip of challah, and we're just going to wrap it around like a bandage or a mummy. And this is a really fun thing to get your kids involved in, or even your friends. When I say kids, adults love it too. Everyone's gonna have fun with this. We just wanna have each hot dog wrapped up. I'm gonna put it on a parchment-lined sheet pan. I'm gonna brush each dog with just a little bit of beaten egg. And we're gonna do this before and after our second proof. What does that mean? It means we're letting this dough rise again. Again, we need it to double in size so it's nice and puffy, and that's the difference between a beautiful fluffy dough and a dense one. We're gonna throw these trays in just a warm corner of our kitchen and let them sit for about 45 minutes to an hour, just until they're beautifully puffy and have doubled in size. I find that brushing them both before and after the second proof gets them extra golden and beautiful, just because this gives time for this first layer of egg wash to kind of dry onto the dough, and it makes it that much easier for the second layer to stick and really brown up in the oven. I'm just gonna throw these in the back here, and while they proof, we're gonna get going on our challah monkey bread when we come back. Welcome back. While our challah dogs are proofing, we're gonna get going on our monkey bread. This is such an easy dessert. I'm telling you, all the work was making the dough, and now we're just gonna toss it with a little bit of a spiced sugar and butter. Couldn't be any more delicious. So what I'm gonna do is get going on this little flavored sugar here. I have a ½ cup of granulated sugar, 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon, 1 teaspoon of ground nutmeg, and a ½ teaspoon of kosher salt. Give that a little whisk, and this is gonna coat every little piece of dough and caramelize in the oven. It just becomes so heavenly, and the smell intoxicating. So I have my half batch of challah dough here, and I'm just gonna use my bench scraper and cut them into strips and then into ½ inch pieces. They don't have to be perfect by any means, just little ½ inch pieces that we're gonna toss with butter and sugar. We're gonna add all of our pieces back to the bowl, and we're gonna toss it with 6 tablespoons of melted butter. Now I'm just gonna toss it with my hands. You wanna kind of make sure that everything is separated and coated. If any of your dough is sticking, that's fine, just pull it apart. We're making a pull-apart bread, remember? And there is something so magical about baking this fresh, flipping it out, glazing it. Everyone goes crazy for warm, caramel-coated bread. All right, and now I'm just gonna toss it with my cinnamon sugar mixture. Get it nice and well coated. And that butter and sugar is going to melt and bake into this beautiful caramel to coat each little piece of challah. All right, I have a bundt pan here. There's no need to grease it because, as you can see, we're using plenty of butter. And I'm just going to scatter our pieces of challah dough all around evenly. Amazing. Now it's time to let this proof again. So what does that mean? We're gonna let this double in size. It's gonna fill out our pan, and that's what's gonna give us that beautiful, fluffy monkey bread. Should take about 45 minutes to an hour to rise, and then we're gonna bake it so it's nice and fluffy. So this is what I'm talking about when I say puffy, when I say proofed, when I say double in size. You can see these challah wrapped hot dogs. They look like they're already baked, but they're not. It's just that we gave enough time for the dough to truly rise, and that's what's gonna give us that beautiful, fluffy end product after we bake them. Same deal with our monkey bread. We're gonna get these in the oven, but I'm just gonna give it one last egg wash. And this is gonna just help make sure everything is beautifully golden and shiny. As well as it's gonna be the glue to throw on some everything bagel seasoning. Though the everything bagel seasoning is totally optional, you could also just do flaky salt, sesame seeds, poppy seeds, whatever you'd like. A nice healthy sprinkle on every dog. I love everything bagel seasoning. I'm a bagel fiend. We're obviously using this fluffy challah dough to wrap these hot dogs. Kind of gives that real kind of quintessential New York vibe. I grew up going to this place in Queens called Knishnosh that would take knish dough and wrap hot dogs. So I've kind of had this just obsession with taking classic New York flavors and turning them into incredible, appetizing foods to serve to everyone I love. One thing I love about these two variations on challah dough, and I do so much more than this. I actually have an entire section of my second cookbook dedicated to learning how to make challah dough and all of the things that you can do with it. But for these two particularly, they bake at the same temperature for the same amount of time. We're gonna throw them into a 400-degree oven for 15 to 20 minutes until they're golden brown. And then when we come back, we'll glaze our monkey bread and try everything. Welcome back. Everything smells so good. We're about to pull out our challah dogs and that monkey bread right from the oven. Look at that gorgeous golden color. Now that everything's out of the oven, we're just gonna make a quick powdered sugar glaze to go on top of our monkey bread, which we're about to flip. I've got 1 cup of confectioner sugar. I'm just gonna throw in a teaspoon of vanilla extract, a 1/4 teaspoon of kosher salt, and 1½ tablespoons of water. We just want to give this a little whisk to combine. You could flavor this however you'd like. Sometimes I'll use vanilla bean paste because it's so pretty, or a little lemon zest, a little almond extract. Amazing. Now it's time just to plate everything up. You're gonna want to invert this onto a platter or a board like this one. Just remember, the most important thing is flipping with confidence. All right. Oh my God, gorgeous, caramelized. That right there is a stunning monkey bread. Throw my challah dogs on a platter. And last but not least, let's glaze up this monkey bread. Still hot and steamy. Got that beautiful, fluffy, cinnamon-coated dough with the glaze. It is so good, so decadent. You made one dough and got two insane, entertaining recipes out of this. I'm telling you, you got this. You are going to be a master of challah. You're gonna be a master of yeasted dough. I believe in you. And now you're going to make these recipes, take tons of pictures, and send them to me at Jake Cohen. I'll see you next time.